Welcome everyone to our July Savory session. My name is Ana Aranda. I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for the SCOPE team. And let me admit some more people into the room. And today you're going to hear all about Astrobites. So we're really excited to have the Astrobites team here today. And you will actually see them next month too at our August Savory session. They'll be sharing some of their science communication best practices and tips and tricks. So stay tuned for our next email about that. Really quickly for everybody who's new, we are, as I mentioned, I'm part of the SCOPE team, and so we are a community of practice. The community that we serve are NASA Science Activation Team, subject matter experts such as yourselves, and early career scientists. And we do this, our practice of doing this is to create inspiring educational materials and experiences that are effective, true to science, and are inclusive of all audiences. And the domain in which we serve is Earth and space science and engineering education. And so we do this by having best practices, and we are also a knowledge stewarding community of practice. So, as always, we kick off our savory sessions with a savory snack. So today's savory snack is from Spain. So pan con tomate. It is one of the simplest and most delicious tapas found in Spain. And it includes raw tomato and garlic gets rubbed on fresh, crunchy bread. This simple, tasty snack reaches tapas perfection when accompanied by a pitcher of sangria. So your question today, you can answer this in the chat, is what ingredient is drizzled on top of pan con tomate? Is it honey, is it butter, honey, olive oil, or vinegar? I'll give you like a few seconds to put it in the chat, and then we can start, we can look at our answers. So let's see. Okay. Last like 5 seconds to get your answer in. Okay. So the correct answer is olive oil, and it looks delicious. So I hope you all are hungry and try this savory snack next time you're in Spain or want to try a Spanish dish. Okay, now to the real topic of today's meeting. So I am pleased to introduce Cole. Cole is on the line. He is a PhD student from the University of Pennsylvania studying astrophysics and specifically observational and theoretical cosmology. And after earning his bachelor's degree in astrophysics and physics from the University of Chicago, he earned his master's in physics from the University of Cambridge, during which he discovered his love for scientific communication. We love that. And since then, he has been a volunteer author for Astrobites and acts as a co-host for their sister podcast, Astro Soundbites. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Cole.
Thanks. Thank you so much. I don't have to do my own introduction now. It's so nice of you. Can I share my screen to get the slides working? I think you may have to allow it.
Give me one quick second. There you go.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Let's try it now. Cool. Okay, great. So I think I can just slideshow it. No, not like that. Can you see the slides, but not my notes? That would be ideal.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. All right, hi, everyone. Yeah, so as Anna said, I'm Cole Meldorf. I'm a volunteer author with Astrobites, which is a graduate student-run astrophysics research journal that has been running for about 12 years now with the goal of supporting early career scientists in a bunch of different ways, and we'll go through that right now. You already kind of heard this, but I'm a second-year PhD student. I've been an author for 2 years now, and I am sort of go-between between the Astrobites website and our Astrobites podcast, of which I'm also a host. Next month, you'll be hearing from my colleague Sokya, who's also on the call, who is also a PhD student and also an Astrobites author. Okay, so if there's one key takeaway I'd like you to take away from what you've heard about Astrobites is that Astrobites is a group of graduate students and alumni who are now faculty and researchers around the world who are dedicated to making the scientific field that we love so much more accessible and welcoming to everyone who wants to work in it, and that is, of course, astronomy and astrophysics. So our mission is to, as I said, improve inclusivity for astrophysics in any way, shape, or form. But our bread and butter, to go with the savory theme, our bread and butter approach to this is writing daily research summaries about recent papers in astrophysics. So every day we go to the archive website, we pick a recent astrophysics paper, and we rewrite that paper at a level that is appropriate for someone who is interested in astronomy and astrophysics, but maybe hasn't done a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD. So if you're looking to get excited about astronomy, this is the perfect knowledge level. We also believe that this approach to writing astronomy research articles helps improve inclusivity in astronomy, because we believe that depending on your educational background, you might not be able to, parse the ridiculous thick jargon that a lot of these astrophysics papers are written in, even if you have been working in astronomy before. And we also believe that the more marginalized you are in the astrophysics community, the worse this effect is likely to be. So we believe that by lowering this barrier, we are improving astronomy's welcomeness to people who have been marginalized based on race, sex, what have you. An additional benefit to writing like this is that it allows people who are just getting into astronomy research for the first time, like a high schooler or an undergraduate, start their first forays into reading modern astrophysics papers without having to, learn what all of those acronyms mean and why there's so many Greek letters in here for some reason. So not only do we help, early career researchers, but also try to improve accessibility for everyone, regardless of race, sex, class, creed, etc. Did it not? Oh, there we go. Yeah, so as I said, the main method we do this through is by writing one research article per day at a level that is closer to a public understanding knowledge level. This has a couple of additional benefits beyond just improving accessibility. It also gives our graduate students more experience in writing scientific communication articles. We also believe that part of the difficulty of studying astronomy comes from perhaps some astronomers, myself included, not being as clear as perhaps they could be. So we believe by getting in early and helping our graduate students practice their scientific communication when they are writing their thesis, when they are writing papers, those papers will be that much more understandable. And prevents us from falling into the kind of trap of just writing in words that only our niche sub field can understand. We also have the added benefit of whenever we finish an article, we tend to get in contact with the original authors, which not only sort of builds connections for our graduate students with real faculty in the community, but also gets the word out about Astrobites. The final benefit, I would argue, is that often we tend to write Astrobites that are a little bit outside of our field if we want to, and that allows us to explore new and different topics that we might not see, again, in our super niche field. And then also, these Astrobites are also a really good resource, even if you're not first getting into astronomy right now. For example, if you need a refresher on like stellar dynamics or cosmology, I have personally gone to these articles before for little refreshers, and they've been really useful. So there are a lot of, popular science for astronomy articles out there. So what makes Astrobites different? So I think the most important thing is that it's coming straight from the horse's mouth. You're coming from people who are doing active research in these fields, learning how to research in these fields right now, and are the best people equipped to talk about that. We also pride ourselves on using humor and approachable language. Maybe this is not the best example of humor, but in general we do, to make astrophysics not only educational, but engaging, because we think astrophysics is one of the coolest sciences out there, and people should be able to understand that based on how we talk about it. And then finally, something that I think is really interesting is we do a very extensive cross-linking program where every time you write an astrobite, anytime you mention something that might not be common knowledge to someone, but you don't really have the time to explain in a short article, you link to another astrobite. So say you were reading this astrobite right here, and you didn't know what a primordial black hole was. Well, you could get linked to a different astrobite that would tell you what a primordial black hole was before you wanted to read this. So you could, no matter what your incoming knowledge level is, you can always go back to understand up to the point you need to understand this astrobite. And then finally, we also make sure to constantly engage with our audience and our community through comments and answering questions. And then the next thing I wanted to point out is that Astrobites has been growing over the years. Over the last 12 years, we've come from, rock bottom to now about 700,000 viewers per year. This plot is a little old, but that number is still hovering around 700,000, 800,000 right about now. And as time has gone on, we've seen a more and more global viewership for our website, which is really exciting. And not even just in the Anglosphere. We see a lot of viewers from other countries whose primary language is not English. And that has inspired the spin-off into some astrobites that are translated into other languages, which I'll get to in a little bit. But we have been growing our website not only in size, but also in languages spoken. Perfect. So I've talked a lot about our Astrobites research articles and what we write, but Astrobites writes a lot of other kinds of articles too. So basically any article that doesn't fall under the research category gets put into our beyond category, where we do a ton of different things. The first one that's important is that we regularly attend conferences such as the AAS, where we live blog the conference and write special articles for the talks that are being given there. So if you're an early career astronomer and you maybe can't go to or can't afford to go to these conferences, you can still hear what's going on. And then our next category is sort of career navigation, where we talk to graduate students on how did you pick where you wanted to apply for grad school? How did you write your essays? How did you apply for the NASA FNS award or any of these other really important grants for graduate students, and other early career advice? Of course, there is career advice that we cannot give, so we turn to faculty and professional researchers in the field and conduct interviews. Not only do they give career advice, but they often also talk about their experiences being like a woman or other marginalized group in not cosmology, in astrophysics, or how they've handled neurodivergence in academia, or they're just general advice for getting through a pretty tough field. And then finally, or not finally at all. Another thing we do in Astrobites Beyond is something I think is really exciting is our undergraduate research articles. These are articles that are written by undergraduates who apply to write an Astrobites article, but they don't write it on any random archive paper. They write it on their own research. So they don't have to go out and do a bunch of background. They get to write about what they know really well. I think this is excellent because this might be their first experience with scientific communication before they ever do a poster, before they ever write a paper. So I think it's very good that they have a chance to practice explaining their own research to a wide audience. And of course, we all know that if you can't explain something simply, you don't actually understand it. I think that's attributed to Einstein, but I'm almost certain that he didn't actually say that. But I believe that. So this gives them a practice to make sure they really understand what they talk about before they put pen to paper for a poster or an academic journal. Then our guest posts follow the same exact logic where someone applies to write for Astrobites for a single one-off, but not restricted to just undergraduates. And then finally, we've started in the last couple of years a sort of education initiative where we think about, okay, we've written all of these Astrobites, how could they possibly be used for education, not just for people to read the website, but in the classroom. So we designed these lesson programs that surround specific Astrobites articles and even did a bit of a research study of using them in classrooms. And we saw that not only did they improve understanding, but they improved engagement with and excitement for science, specifically astronomy. So not only do these Astrobites help young researchers understand, but they also say, oh, this is something I understand and something that I can get excited about. Another big thing, continuing in the theme of improving the scientific community beyond research, Astrobites has a very active climate change advocacy subcommittee. So, as a platform that's based on science communication, we think it's very important to not only embrace interdisciplinary science, but also to continue to discuss the climate emergency that will leave no one unaffected. This committee has 3 big jobs. The first of which is, creating a community of astronomers and students who are engaged in climate advocacy. We post I'm not part of this committee. They post regularly on the intersection of astro and climate change, and they have an annual Earth Week program, which includes posts and live virtual discussions and panels that discuss what we can do as a community to help with the climate change issue. And then finally, I think probably the most impressive aspect of Astrobites is that despite being a website that has only existed for about 12 years, we have spawned a grand total of 29 spin-off websites. A couple of those in the top row are those websites that I mentioned that are the same Astrobites, just translated into a different language, such as Spanish or Portuguese. We're adding Greek, I think is another one we're working on right now, because we have a couple of Greek authors. And on occasion, people who are bilingual or trilingual tend to just translate their own Astrobites in little one-offs that don't have their own website. But that's a bit more on a case-by-case basis. But we've spun off into, besides the different language Astrobite websites, we have about 20 or so byte websites that don't focus on astronomy. Not only do these websites focus on other physics concepts like soft matter, particle physics, quantum computing, but we also have a lot of byte websites that focus on medicine, biology, nutrition, and other non-physics subfields. And so seeing the growth of all of those new websites has been really exciting. And that, like that graphic says, a grand total of 4,000 articles across all of our different websites, which is pretty cool. Finally, I'm pretty biased personally towards the extension in the top right corner, the Astro Soundbites, which is the podcast that I am a co-host of with a bunch of other great grad students. So the purpose of this podcast is that not only are we able to go a little bit more in depth on the Astrobites that get published, we take about 3 Astrobites per episode that have a common theme and talk about them and dissect them and talk about the papers behind them. So not only do we get to go a little bit deeper into those Astrobites, but we also get the chance to talk about visual impairment advocacy. Not only, can you listen to our podcast rather than reading it if you have a visual impairment, but every episode is focused on discussing data sonification. How do we make data more accessible to people who cannot see very well? And we discuss how does one make a good sonification, what makes a good sonification bad, and we listen to some every episode. So that's another way that Astrobites is trying to seek to make astronomy more accessible to people of all types. Finally, while Astrobites has always and will always be solely run by graduate students, we do have some pretty powerful backers who believe in us and vouch for us. Probably the biggest one is the American Astronomical Society, who, in exchange for funding, we go to their meetings every year. We live blog those. We usually host a little bit of a panel where we talk about our own stuff, and then we promote AAS and in return they promote our Science Byte network. And it's a great, just symbiotic relationship where we get to write about AAS and we get to have a website in exchange. Oh, and I forgot, this is kind of new actually. In addition, recently we've also been started cross-posting about one Astrobite per month onto the AAS Nova website, which is kind of their equivalent website where they write about recent research articles for their audience. And every once in a while, we post an Astrobite onto their website. So there's a great crossover there. Another big group we started working with very recently, actually, is the PRJ, the Physical Review Journals, where we cover 2 PRJ articles per month in return for, again, funding and getting to exist. But the great thing about the PRJ collaboration is that whenever I write a PRJ article, I find myself going a bit further afield than I normally do and learning about something that I otherwise wouldn't usually talk about, which has been really, really rewarding and in general has improved greatly our authors' scientific communication skills. And then finally, some more stuff in the works is that we're currently in talks with the archive website itself to possibly get our articles directly linked on the archive, which would be super cool. But that is, again, currently in the works. Finally, over the last couple of years, we saw a disturbing trend in a couple of different harassment cases in astrophysics and physics departments at universities around the world. So we started this anti-harassment campaign where we drafted this code of conduct that we hope more universities will follow. And I can have the link for that after this. And that has been going pretty well so far. So in conclusion, Astrobites started out with a goal of making science more accessible to young researchers, and we're pursuing that goal every day. We are hitting almost 1,000 research summaries have posted on Astrobites. We may have passed 1,000 already, but in addition, we are also seeking to advance scientific education through improving education itself, but also improving accessibility for people who've been marginalized in astronomy. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I have time for questions if anyone has questions. Also, I should mention, website, astrobites.org, as you probably would have guessed. But if you're interested, astrobites.org.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So So what if I am a grad student, a PhD student, and I want to get involved with Astrobites, helping write some of the bytes? How do I
Great question.
get
Great
started?
question. Yes. So every year, so I should have said this at the top. All of our authors come on in 2-year rotations. You can definitely work longer in the sort of committee and administrative side if you want, but we typically have our authors last for 2 years so that we can bring on new authors. And so every year we send out a call for new authors. That call gets posted on the Astrobites website itself as an article. And then if you go to the website, you can kind of click a checkbox where it will email you every time a new article comes out. And so you could see that article as soon as it comes out. The usual procedure for that is that you get a little sheet where you say, like, this is my name, where I'm from, what I do. And then they typically ask you to write a sample astrobite. And then the hiring committee looks at that astrobite, reads it, and if they think you'd be a good fit, they reach out and you can join the team. I think typically about, I don't have an exact number, so this is an estimate, but about 70-ish% of people who apply get to write. And but if you don't, that call goes out every year and you're always welcome to try again. But yeah, if you wanted to know about it sooner rather than later, I would go to the website and click the little email button, and then you would know as soon as it would. I actually don't know when our last call went out. Sokia would know better than I would. But it is once a year. And I think it was in the winter is when it comes out.
Cool. And isn't the same thing to get involved with the other, like Astro Soundbites, the other affiliate?
Yeah, Astro Soundbites puts out a call for new hosts whenever old hosts retire. There's not really as strict of a 2-year limit. So, I mean, I think one of our first hosts went from basically since he was like a second-year grad student until he was faculty. So it's kind of just whenever they leave. We're on our 3rd generation of hosts now, but that Astro Soundbites is posted on pretty much every podcast catcher that is out there. So like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. So if you listen to the podcast, we also always release an episode when we're looking for new hosts.
Awesome. Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions before we wrap up? Nope. Okay. Well,
Thanks,
thank
everyone.
you so much, Cole. It's been a pleasure. And as a reminder, we have our next Savory session in August, and the Astrobites team will be back again. So if you haven't asked your question now, maybe you can ask it at the next session. Thank you all so much for coming, and have a great day.